The Green Bay Packers re-signed Aaron Jones. Now, when the news first broke, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, so I'm a bit late on this. When the news first broke, it was a 4-year, $48 million extension. I hated it. Didn't know why they did it. But there's a bit of a saving grace here. So, details emerged a bit after, explaining it's a 4-year, $48 million extension with $13 million guaranteed, with a potential out in 2023. He'd be 29 years old then. So it could really be a 2-year, $20 million extension. Because if they were to cut him after those 2 years, it'd be like about a $6.5 million cap hit. Not too bad. A dead cap hit, that is. So the contract isn't that bad. You know, they have a clear out. But here's the thing. Why pay him? Why did you pay him? Um, you took AJ Dillon in the second round last year, and everybody thought it was a bad pick at the time, including me. And the one like good thing about that pick was, okay, down the road you don't have to pay Aaron Jones and you can slot in AJ Dillon as your starter. Well, you paid Aaron Jones, so you spent a second round pick on a backup running back. Like, that's confusing to me. Now they did let Corey Linsley walk as well, and you know, initially I had issues with it. I don't so much have an issue with it now. Granted, you could argue he's the best center in football. He did want a lot of money, but the per year averages compared to him and Aaron Jones, pretty similar. So, you know, they kicked money down the road to pay Aaron Jones. If if you're picking between one of the two, I'm gonna lean with pay Linsley because he's an all-pro center. Aaron Jones is a running back, albeit a very good one. And I do want to say this real quick. I have no issue with Aaron Jones, the player or the guy. He's in my top 10 running backs. I probably put him like 8-ish, on the fringe top 10. Um, a lot of players in the league seem to love him. Players out of the league now too, like Michael Vick is really high on Aaron Jones. Like, I'm not coming at the guy. I'm looking at this from a team building perspective. Looking at the Packers here. Like, okay, you let Linsley walk. I would have preferred, okay, if you're not going to pay Linsley, don't pay Aaron Jones. Let them both leave. And they could have gotten some steals this year's free agency. Like, there was reports last season that they were going to trade a second round pick for Will Fuller. Well, Will Fuller was a free agent this year. You could have paid him. He took a 1-year deal to play with Miami. Now, I get it. Miami, Green Bay, very different. We don't know if he would have had they offered, but they didn't even offer. They couldn't because they paid Aaron Jones. Imagine Will Fuller, who signed like a 1-year, $10 million deal with incentives. So it's incentives up to $10 million. Like, Green Bay could have easily afforded that. Imagine Will Fuller alongside Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, with a chance to cash out if you have a great season the year after, with the cap situation expected to skyrocket up. You're telling me Will Fuller wouldn't have taken that? Now, maybe he wouldn't have. Obviously, we'll never know, but that seems like a no-brainer to me, had they not paid Aaron Jones. Another guy. What about Kyle Fuller? Another Fuller, ironically. Had they not paid Aaron Jones? I think he signed a 1-year, $9 million deal. Now, former Chicago Bear got cut by the Bears late in the free agency process, relatively late. You don't think he would have signed cheap with the Packers to get back at his old team? They could have done that had they not paid Aaron Jones. Like, this is what I'm talking about. with the Packers, the team building aspect of it. You're telling me you couldn't draft a running back in the third or fourth round that can't that couldn't do what Aaron Jones has done the last 2 years to pair with AJ Dillon? Like, okay, AJ Dillon's a very different back from Aaron Jones, but I'm sure there's plenty of running backs like Aaron Jones in the draft you could have taken. Like I don't understand re-signing them. Now, they didn't get obviously they're not getting worse re-signing him. I like Aaron Jones, a player. Again, like I said, he's a good player, a very good player. But they could have gotten so much better exploring free agency, letting him go. If you're going to kick money down the road, might as well kick it down the road for a guy like Will Fuller, a guy like Kyle Fuller, Um, those are only two guys I'm talking about. Like, Juju was on the open market too. He took less money. Now, granted, Juju really likes the Steelers. Maybe he would have stayed with the Steelers anyway. But, like, they couldn't even explore their options in free agency because they paid Aaron Jones, I think their only moves in free agency thus far have been re-signing Mercedes Lewis, Kevin King, and Aaron Jones. I think that's all they've been able to do. Now, Green Bay can still get better. There's still the draft and free agency. There's still a lot of players out there who knows who they could pick up for cheap. But specifically looking at the draft, I would say their two biggest needs are corner and wide receiver. Now, I know they just let Corey Linsley walk, like I mentioned. They could draft the center in the first round, but Green Bay has a pretty solid track record of developing offensive linemen, which is why I kind of leaned back on the slander I gave to them for the Corey Linsley, like letting Corey Linsley leave. They have a pretty good track record of this. They drafted three linemen in last year's class in the mid rounds. Maybe one of them steps up. Maybe they slot. They move Elton Jenkins inside the center and draft a guard. Well, there's plenty of things they could do, but they're in direct competition with Tampa. I see it. If Tampa's here, Green Bay is right behind them. And I think maybe the Rams and Seattle are a tier lower than those two teams. San Francisco too, when healthy. San Francisco actually probably right there with Tampa Bay, now that I say it. But we'll see if San Fran can stay healthy. We'll see what they do at quarterbacks as well. But Green Bay's right there for a Super Bowl. They have to draft well. I would suggest a corner in the first round. Like, this is what I would do, depending on who's available. Asante Samuel Jr., Greg Newsome, maybe J.C. Horn. One of those guys is there at the Packers pick. I'd take them in a heartbeat. Send the card in immediately. Draft one of those guys. And then receiver in the second round. Now, this receiver class is stacked. So that's why I say you don't have to take one in the first round, because I think a good one could fall to them in the second. So if they do that, I might pick them to beat Tampa next year. Like, for all that I said about not bringing back Corey Linsley, for re-signing Aaron Jones, me not liking those moves, they have Aaron Rodgers. Like, when you have Aaron Rodgers, who's the greatest quarterback I've ever watched, you're not going to be far off. So they're still right there, but they have to execute this draft to perfection to compete with Tampa Bay. We saw Tampa slaughter them early in the season. I think it was week 4 or 5. And then, I thought they were going to slaughter them in the championship game as well. And now, granted, they were up 28-10, like, 2.5 quarters in, 3 quarters in. So, but give Green Bay the credit. They rallied. They played a lot better than I expected. And they made it close. They had a chance to win at the end. And with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, that's all you can ask for. So they're not far off, man. Now, last year's draft was iffy, to say the least. So I don't have the most amount of faith that they're going to execute this draft to perfection. But, that's sort of recency bias, because Green Bay usually drafts pretty well. So I'm not going to rule it out that they have a killer draft and are right back in the swing of things when it's NFC Championship time. So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. I'm intrigued to see what they do, and I really can't wait. This draft, man, I cannot wait for the draft. So those are my thoughts on Aaron Jones re-signing in the Packers, where I think they are. Make sure you like the video, subscribe. Tell me what you think about the deal. If you like it, if you hate it, what you would have done if you were the Brian Gutekunst. I appreciate y'all so much. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Keep it up. Appreciate y'all. Peace.